You know what had me fucked up the most? The fact that I would be engaging in this self-destructive behavior and I'm not even enjoying it. It's like I'm in this trance, I can't pull away, and I hate myself for not being able to. I'm not in the driver's seat, I'm on autopilot. And it's funny because you do this thing thinking it's gonna make you feel some type of way, like relaxed, happy, satisfied, and yet it just pulls you further and further away from that feeling. I am pretty sure everybody has experienced this feeling. You come home from work, you're tired AF, and you think, I'm gonna just hop on TikTok for a couple minutes before dinner, and then before you know it, 3 hours have gone by and you need to be asleep in like 2 minutes to get ready for the next day. You feel so drained and you hate yourself for wasting those precious hours of relaxation on something that you initially thought would relax you. Dude, back in the days, I used to get FOMO so bad on a Friday night, watching everybody out on their stories, and then before you know it, I'm elbow deep in some Doritos powder. And I don't even like Doritos that much. And I would hate myself because I feel sick to the stomach, but I'm stuffing myself and I'm beating myself up for not being able to stop. And it's just this spiral that is so hard to get out of. I have been there, my friends, and I cannot tell you just how liberating it is to break free from these toxic cycles and feel like you actually have control over your life. It could be phone addiction, binge eating, casual sex, drugs and alcohol, partying and benders, dating apps, the list goes on, but it all ends in the same way. Guilty, ashamed, filled with regret, lethargic, and drained. And by the time you get that post-dopamine rush clarity and you've dealt with the consequences, you got your shit back together, and you're ready to start making good decisions again, you're already bored. It's like, things are going well, too well. And the need for distraction and excitement gets bigger and stronger. It's like you need something to spice up the reality of your mundane, healthy adult life. I remember back in the day, I used to think, damn, successful people must be hella boring. Like they ain't got nothing fun going on for them. Just grinding it out. The people that sleep at 9 p.m., wake up early to work out, they don't do any drugs, they spend their weekends doing random day adventures. I am now that person, and I never thought I would get here where I didn't need to rely on certain vices to have fun. I didn't realize that there were so many things you could do throughout the day that would fill your cup so that you wouldn't feel so tempted to go out at night and then spend the rest of the next day recovering. I never knew what true relaxation felt like. I thought that going on my phone and scrolling through social media was me switching off. Now, my days just feel so much richer. It's like I get a lot done, but I also have a lot of free time to explore so many different things. I get satisfaction out of the little things now. It's literally as simple as a really nice cup of coffee or a nice walk in the sunshine, literally stopping to smell the roses. It's crazy how I feel so much more aligned with my needs as a person and not under the control of my hedonistic desires. I used to always feel like I was living life in a haze and I was just going through the motions and just waiting for that next hit of dopamine. I was still getting things done, you know, as you need to, but I wasn't really present through it. And even in my fun time off, I still felt like I was in that haze and nothing ever really satisfied me. I always felt like something was missing. Now, I already know that if you've clicked on this video and you're watching this, you can relate in some way, shape, or form. And look, you may not be ready to let go of the strongholds in your life just yet, but the mere fact that you're here is a sign that you're in the pre-contemplation phase. So stick around so we can plant the seed before we usher in change. So I am going to share with you how I broke every single one of my toxic cycles and how I coach my clients to do so as well. Now, let me just tell you this, it is not as difficult as it seems. I know it can feel like a massive mountain to climb, but I've had so many clients come to me and say, yo, that was actually surprisingly easy, or I didn't realize the solution was that simple. So without further ado, let's get stuck into it. All right, so in order to understand the topic of self-sabotaging behaviors and how to break them, I'm gonna split this video up into 3 parts. Part 1 is why we feel the need to self-destruct and the chemistry going on in your brain, because it really does come down to chemistry. The second phase of the video is how to reframe your mindset and really build awareness around what your triggers and inner desires and needs are. And then thirdly, how to actually break the behavior and replace them with better ones. First up, we need to understand pain and pleasure. Dude, once I learned this concept, it literally radicalized everything for me. So shout out to Dr. Andrew Huberman, because once I learned this, it was a game changer. It's like you finally understand the relationship between pain and pleasure and behavior, and then your perception on behavior changes, which then leads to behavior change. It's crazy. So this is what people don't know. We actually need pain in order to balance out pleasure. Otherwise, ironically, we stop feeling it. And likewise, we need bouts of pleasure in order to balance out pain before it becomes too distressing. And dopamine is the driving force that balances these two experiences. In fact, the same area of the brain that processes pleasure also processes pain. And differing amounts of dopamine essentially give us the experience of one or the other. So the ultimate goal that your brain is trying to achieve here is simply balancing the amount of dopamine at all times, okay? And that's why when we experience a surge in pleasure, it's very quickly followed by a come down. And all that is really is just a rush of dopamine followed by a drop, and that is in order to maintain our motivation. I mean, if you think about it, if we never came down from the experience of pleasure, we would become complacent. There would be no drive to work, no need to change, and the chances of surviving would diminish. We need to experience some level of suffering day to day in order to survive. Let's use an example here. When I eat a piece of chocolate, I get a hit of dopamine, and that is automatically reciprocated by an equal and opposite stimulus from the side of pain, which is the yearning for a second piece of chocolate. Now, if I act on that, then my pleasure stimulus or experience is intensified. Double the chocolate. But so is the painful stimulus of intense come down that I'll experience, which is the regret of eating too much chocolate. And that is how addiction starts. It is literally like a drug. You know, the higher the high, the harder the come down. The more you have it, the more your tolerance increases and the more you need in order to get the same effect of pleasure. However, if I had waited long enough after the first piece of chocolate and just got through the slight pain of resisting my urge, then the balance would be restored and I would be satisfied with just one piece of chocolate. And what's important is the next time I eat chocolate, one piece of chocolate is enough to satisfy that dopamine hit. I don't need double the chocolate to get there. Does that make sense? I hope that made sense. So what I'm trying to say here is too much pleasure leads to pain. It is a physiological process built into us by the creator upstairs, and for good reason, you know, and that's why always chasing pleasure goes against what it means to be human. Understanding that pain is not only good, but necessary in order for us to actually experience pleasure completely changes how you view life, and it changes your values, which is why being focused on happiness is a myth. The goal of life is to be happy is bullshit. And anyone who lives life by that motto fails to achieve it because it's not how humans were created. The people who hit the club up every single weekend are low-key miserable. The guy or girl who jumps from relationship to relationship every time they think they found the one will never find love. That's why every celebrity has some messed up Nietzsche complex and hardcore addiction despite literally being on top of the world. It's ironic that Western society is literally built upon chasing pleasure, and yet we have the worst mental health crisis at the moment, despite living in the best of times. When I learned about the relationship between pain and pleasure, my mind was literally blown. Look, I was a science student, so very little surprises me about how the brain and body works, but this really did, and it really made me change the way I looked at pleasure. I faced myself and I realized that I had gone too far. And in order to stop overindulging in pleasure, I had to experience pain willfully, daily. I could indulge in pleasure just a little bit, but I always had to pull back in order to keep restoring that balance. And that's why today, dark chocolate tastes really sweet to me. Or if I have had way too many desserts a few days in a row, I feel sick, I feel gross. Discovering a new beach gives me the same rush that partying once used to. Or a random conversation with a stranger in the coffee shop fills my cup so much. No pun intended. When I go away for the weekend or go and do something fun, it feels so much more enjoyable because I know I've earned it by working really hard all week. Because my sensitivity to pleasure is so much lower than it used to be, all I need are tiny bursts of it in order to get a huge amount of pleasure. And that's because of two things. I expose myself to pain on the regular, and I purposely pull back or hold myself back from too much pleasure so I don't ruin it. So as we move into the next part of this video, I really want you you to approach this topic as a way to balance your dopamine receptors and literally change your brain chemistry. All right, next part of this video is all about shifting paradigms. 90% of the battle well and truly is in the mind. So we really need to upgrade our operating system. So it's time to get the iOS 16 update rolling in, shall we? First paradigm. Self-sabotage is the symptom and not the cause. Building awareness isn't just realizing what you're doing, but asking yourself what is really going on, like peeling that layer. Okay, like for example, I had a really bad dependency on a certain vice quite a few years ago, and I used to think that was my problem. But when I really started to reflect and assess, I realized that every time I got a little bit upset, a little bit stressed, or a little bit down, I would turn to it. And it made me realize that the vice itself wasn't my biggest problem. It's that I had shit coping skills. I didn't know how to face my problems. I did not know how to confront people and problems and situations I would escape. Escapism was my problem, and that's what I needed to fix. I had a few demons going on in my life at that time. I had some personal problems and it took a long time to work through them. But it's crazy how as soon as I addressed those things, that dependency on that vice slowly started to slip away and I didn't really feel like I needed it. And look, it doesn't have to be something extreme. It could be even something as simple as TikTok. So I developed an addiction to TikTok like many others, and I didn't understand that it wasn't necessarily TikTok that was the problem, although it is very addictive in nature. It was more so my reasons for being on TikTok. And when I again sat down and analyzed it, I realized the only times I was ever on that app were when I was tired or bored. And so I had to find other ways to address my tiredness or boredom in order to satisfy my desires of relaxation or excitement or something to do, right? Once I had better options, getting off TikTok became easier. I'm not saying that stopping an addictive behavior is ever going to be easy, but it can always be easier when you address the underlying reason why that addiction started. Now, building awareness around a problem can be a double-edged sword because you start to realize what's going on, but then sometimes you can fixate on that and then that can become a problem in and of itself. Like, oh my God, I'm so messed up. Oh, I need therapy. Like, that's an issue, and I'll tell you why. Because you're catastrophizing, which leads me to the next paradigm. Don't catastrophize the behavior. When you find yourself in a cycle that's difficult to break and you realize why that's going on and you start self-diagnosing, you tend to spiral. Am I right? Like, OMG, I really have some deeply rooted daddy issues. Or what club is this and why is the sun out right now? I get it. Once you put your detective hat on, it's like you become your own psychologist and you realize you're 50 shades of messed up, but you're also still the patient because you're feeling those emotions. But the problem is when you ruminate and brood over a problem, the bigger it becomes and the more paralyzed you get because it just feels like an impossible feat to overcome, and then becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because your chances of failure are much higher when it feels so big, which is why you need to shrink the problem, belittle it, make it seem as if it's not as bad as it actually is. And this is where delusion can actually be your friend here. Not to say that your problem isn't serious, but we want to make it feel manageable, and we want to equip ourselves with the self-belief and the resources that we can truly overcome this. And if it requires a little bit of delusion to get to that point, well, if it's going to help you at the end of the day, then I don't see it as a problem. If you don't feel like you have the resources to handle your problem, you won't handle it. But if you feed yourself positive affirmations and equip yourself with support systems and tools and truly believe that you're capable of tackling this, you will. As simple as, it's bad, but it's nothing I can't manage. And just telling yourself that, even if it's a like grade A problem that you have that's infiltrating every part of your life. Even giving yourself a timeline, like by the end of the year, I'm gonna be done with this thing, and truly backing yourself with it, not using it as a scapegoat excuse to continue doing what you wanna do. Praying on it. Praying helped me immensely, and asking your family to pray for you or your friends. I know that a lot of people don't believe in prayer, but you know what? Getting the people around you to back you and support you and believe in you is so empowering as well, so you're not feeling like you're alone. Having that commitment by speaking it out loud, saying, I will quit XYZ by this time, and I want you all to keep me accountable, and I want you all to support me and pray for me while I get through it, is literally why we're designed to live and coexist together. So use it. And if you're surrounding yourself with people who are only dragging you further down into this self-destructive behavior, then I'm sorry to say it, but you know what you got to do. Not saying you have to cut them out entirely, but you do need to put some boundaries in place at least. And y'all, speaking of prayer, praying for strength is underrated. Like, whatever you believe in, pray. I know that that is an unconventional suggestion in this day and age, but I'm gonna tell you this. In 20 years' time, there's gonna be some quantum physics explanation behind how prayer works, and I'm a firm believer in that. But look, even if all of that is capped, if the prayer still worked, why wouldn't you try? Placebos work all the time anyway. So we want to decatastrophize, and we want to feel equipped to handle the situation and lean on the resources around you to build that self-belief. Now, another paradigm I would highly suggest that you get your head around is shifting guilt into curiosity. Getting curious about yourself is amazing, so empowering, and it actually does change your brain chemistry too, and I'll explain why in a sec. Being in a state of guilt on that vibration literally shuts you down. It is counterproductive. You can't use your higher order brain functions to problem solve when you are vibrating at this frequency. You're actually operating from your limbic system, which is the primitive part of your brain, and it's that reptilian need for survival, that fight flight. You can't really sit there and be the psychologist and try to diagnose and problem solve and troubleshoot. Being curious, on the other hand, shifts you into learning mode, and it allows you to access parts of your brain the reptilian brain shuts down. In fact, being curious strengthens your reward and your memory systems. The reward system encourages you to get after something, and your memory system is going to help you remember, right? So being in a state of curiosity allows you to seek and retain knowledge. Do you understand just how powerful that is? And that's not all. The activity of the amygdala, which is your emotion processing center that also exists in the primitive brain, it reduces a fair bit. And the cortical midline activity reduces. And that structure is what is responsible for brooding and obsessiveness and depression. So being curious is very helpful neurologically, and it makes it a lot easier to stop catastrophizing your problems and instead start addressing them. You'll shift from being internally focused and problem focused to externally focused and solution oriented. And it gives you a lot of clarity because you're removed from the problem. Dude, I had to pay money to get this information, okay? I studied to find out these hacks, but I'm giving you this free game. So please use it, okay? Probe deeply, solve the mystery, and ultimately become an expert on yourself. I want you to be less of the guilty patient and more of the curious psychologist. Okay, so up until this point, we haven't even gotten into the meat of it. We've just been talking about the science behind pain and pleasure, the guilt, shifting away from that and into curiosity and an empowering and ownership mindset. We want to build somebody who is well prepared and well equipped to take charge of their lives. I would say the iOS update has been installed. So now I'm going to share with you the 3 steps I actively took to break all of my toxic cycles, and this framework just continues to deliver. I use it with my clients all the time, and I'm gonna share that with you today. Number 1, identify the unmet need. All right, so you're going about your day, you're doing your thing, and then boom, you feel the urge to open up TikTok or a dating app or message your ex or grab a cookie or start drinking. This is where you gotta stop and ask yourself, what am I trying to achieve? That is literally it. That's step 1. Figure out what the need is that you're trying to address with this self-destructive behavior. Everything we do, every action we take is designed to serve a purpose, okay? When we snack mindlessly, we are trying to overcome boredom or loneliness, or we're seeking comfort. When we scroll through our phones, we are trying to have fun, or we are trying to connect. If we are going out and getting absolutely hammered, maybe we're looking for escape, or maybe we're looking to socially lubricate. Once you know what the need is, and you have a specific word from it: connection, validation, excitement, freedom, escape, comfort. Find the word, and then you can find the alternative solution that gives you this need. And that leads me to anchors. So number 2 is find your anchor. Now, I learned this from one of my coaches, Alex. So shout out Strength of Sard. Let's talk about anchors. Everybody has anchors. You either are just not aware of it, or you just don't lean on them enough. So if you think about it, the anchor of a ship keeps it grounded so it doesn't drift away with the tumultuous waves of the sea, right? And in this analogy, the waves would be our fleeting and our emotionally charged states. The anchor in the analogy would be the thing that keeps us grounded so that we don't end up losing ourselves in this chaos, in this powerful sea that is the boundless, cataclysmic human consciousness. So, it's not easy to stop a behavior, okay? Don't expect that the ship is just gonna stay there while the sea tries to drift it away. You need to do something, okay? We are human doings as much as we are human beings. And that's why I always say this: adding something in is easier than taking something out. So back to our unmet needs. If your need is to unwind and relax, how can you achieve that without reaching for your phone, which ironically doesn't even achieve its intended purpose because it doesn't let you tap into that deep state of relaxation? So an example for me would be reading. I used to love reading and I just completely stopped for many, many years. And then I would try to get back into reading, and then I would go and get all of these self-help novels and finance books, and I was like, yo, this is not relaxing. No wonder I don't want to pick up the book, and instead I reach for my phone. So very specifically, a fantasy or a sci-fi novel is really how I achieve that state of relaxation. I don't even buy self-help books. I can happily listen to them on my walks, but I cannot read them. Even like watching a good movie or a good TV show and like actually watching it, not like half watching and scrolling through my phone, like getting rid of my phone, I can find a very deep state of relaxation through that experience. Like, yo, Yellowstone changed my life. I don't know what crack they put in that show, but Yellowstone is better than getting stoned. Another example of feeling sad or anxious, I'm pretty sure we all know what vices most of us would turn to, but I found that actually journaling, addressing my problems head on, spending time in nature, meditating, a good chat with a friend, going on a road trip and just escaping for a while, all of those things have allowed me to address the unmet need, and I don't end up regretting what I've done the next day. The great thing about anchors is that they actually achieve their intended purpose. Look, a self-destructive behavior can try and temporarily numb you, but they don't actually address your unmet needs. And they leave a massive path of destruction in your wake that you have to deal with the next day. And that is why I feel 10 times more relaxed, connected, calm, excited when I lean on my anchors and not on my self-destructive behaviors. And lastly, step 3 is to set your environment up for success. So you've identified the unmet need, you've found an anchor or a few anchors that address it. Now you need to fail-proof your environment. It's not enough to just have an offense, you need to have a defense, because let's be real here, old habits die hard. It's really important that you design an environment that is fail-proof, okay? The most successful people are not those who have big, promising goals and, have the craziest amount of sheer determination and willpower to get there. It's those that can preempt their failures and put stone walls up against them to prevent them from ever happening. So we want to make the good habit, the anchor, more convenient, more attainable, and we want to reduce resistance or reduce friction with it, right? But on the other hand, we want to increase friction or resistance with the bad habit, make it less available to us, okay? This is the concept that I found from Atomic Habits. No, I didn't read that book. I did listen to it though, because that's as best I can do when it comes to self-help. But James Clear explains the concept of friction as making things more or less convenient, okay? So examples with TikTok, I had to delete the app and I still do regularly. But when I do have it downloaded, mostly for business reasons, I put stone walls in place. So I'll put time limits on the app. I will move it from the first page of my iPhone or the home screen all the way to the end. So out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. And I also move my phone away from my bed because that's the most likely time that I'm going to reach for my phone is at the end of the workday. So I have my charger on my desk and that's where my phone stays, which means that I'm less likely to reach for it because instead I have a book on my bedside table. Okay. Again, visual cues. We are visual creatures. So utilize visual cues to increase or reduce friction. Another example, comfort food. I probably struggle with this one the most nowadays compared to all the other bad habits that I broke. And I found what works best for me is ensuring that I have plans Friday and Saturday. I don't know why those two are the days where I just happen to feel the most tempted. And I think part of it is FOMO. Like if you see everybody else out or you just feel like you should be doing something and you're not, and you feel the need to fill that void, it's gonna come from food. So even if I don't have any crazy special plans, even if it's literally just going out to get a bite to eat. Another thing which is really niche is I'll be like killing it in life. I'll just be grind mode, monk mode, all the modes. And you know, my sleep routine is on point. I'm sleeping at 9, waking up at 6. I'm barely seeing anyone besides weekends. Like I have such a strict regimented routine. I'm ticking off all my goals and tasks. And then I don't know what happens around that week 4, week 5 mark. I just feel this yearning desire to go and do something crazy. Like I don't even like partying anymore. I don't like alcohol. I never did. And I'll just be like, I just want to get wasted. And it's like, ew, you don't do that. That's not you. And I realized what was really going on is I felt the need for spontaneity or some disruption. Like as much as we are creatures of habit, we do need something to just spice things up a little, you know? Or sometimes I would feel the need to reconnect with an old friend who was the most toxic motherfucker in my life and I don't even like them that much. And I realized I need connection and spontaneity. So what I've been doing is I would schedule in spontaneity throughout my week. And it's as simple as like, instead of working from home, like I always do, I'll take my laptop and go to a random suburb and find a really cute niche cafe and sit down and work. And then instead of doing my regular walk at the trail near my house, I'll do a walk in that suburb. And then that just gives me like different stimuli and I get that hit of newness that I really needed. Or I will book an Airbnb for a weekend with a friend. And then by the time that weekend is finished, it's like I'm yearning for my normal routine again. So things are not always what they seem. No, you don't want to get drunk. You just need to switch things up a little. That's pretty much it. And that is it. That is the framework. I can say that I don't have any strongholds in my life, thank God. I don't have anything that dictates my behaviors. I don't feel like I'm on autopilot anymore. I feel like I'm in the driver's seat and I feel so connected with myself and so aware of my behaviors and why I do what I do. And I'm also really good at exposing myself to pain, which in turn leads to more pleasurable experiences in life. And I really wish the same for you. You know, I don't want to sound cliche and say if I could do it, so can you, but it is true, like no one's special and I really had some messed up things going on in my life. So I genuinely believe that everyone is capable. I think it's all about feeling empowered and knowing that you have what it takes to overcome it. So I hope that you do feel empowered to step out of autopilot and reclaim your autonomy. Now, my name is Mary, for those of you who don't know me. I run Snatched Fitness Coaching and I work with ladies all around the world, helping them become the woman of their dreams and helping them get snatched AF, both of mind and body. So this channel covers all things mindset, training, nutrition, holistic health and healing, empowerment, and so much more. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any future videos. I will be posting every week. And if you want to get to know me on a more personal level and access the inner workings of my mind as I get through this journey called life, then you should join my weekly newsletter, Morning Musings. These are short 5 to 10 minute reads where you can stay up to date with what I'm doing and thinking. You can just join me on my journey towards becoming the baddest, wealthiest, most informed and educated and inspired and aligned baddie that one can possibly be. So the link is in my description if you want to sign up and come along for the ride. All right, that is it from me this week. I'll see y'all in the next video. Ciao.